In our initial discussion, we focused on the concept of identity as a basic concept to be understood before going on to other important concepts. So let's review again for a moment. And if we look at identity, we'll recall that identity is basically those key characteristics or features that people use to identify themselves. In other words, those particular features that make an individual unique. We talked about that in our previous discussion. We also talked about the fact that identity can be broken down, those features that make up identity, into individual and group characteristics. We looked at a number of various examples. Name for an individual characteristic, gender as an example for a group characteristic. So again, we understood that there are both individual features to identity and collective features or group features. Let's continue our discussion, our understanding of group characteristics to see where else we may go with this concept. Well, national identity is another concept that's important to the course, and it's important that we understand it. It's also a concept or a feature that really is group in nature. It's an important element, feature, characteristic of identity. It's an important element that people use to identify themselves, but it is a collective feature. So what is it exactly? Well, national identity is a person's identity and a feeling that that person shares with a group of people. In other words, it's part of an individual's identity, but it's a group characteristic. So it's a sense of belonging that an individual has to a state, a group, or to a nation. And it is obviously, and as was mentioned before, collective or group in nature. But if national identity is a sense of belonging to a particular nation, what is nation? Well, that's another important concept. It's one of the basic concepts that was in the initial related issue. To what extent should nation be the foundation of identity? And so we should understand exactly the meaning of this concept as well. Well, basically, nation is a large group of people united by common elements. So it's a group characteristic or feature. Now, these elements may be certain things such as descent, in other words, background, could be common history, a common culture, it may be a common language, as in the standpoint of francophones in Canada. Sometimes it's people inhabiting or living in a particular country or territory or area. Any of these elements that people share in common and that unite them as being part of a larger group is basically the idea of nation. And like gender, nation is a collective feature. And so our first related issue, that of the first unit of study, asks us to consider to what extent nation should be the foundation of identity. It's an important question, and it's one we're going to continue to look at.